impulsively married a foreman in a tank top. I give him $5,000 a month for living expenses. But at the company annual gala, I brought him along. The chairman of the company, seated at the head table, was stunned. "Son, what are you doing here?" I sat by the window in a cafe, my fingers gripping my phone, the screen displaying my mother's ultimatum. "If you don't find someone this month, come back home and accept the arrangement. Director Zhang's son is free to meet next weekend." I took a deep breath. The bitterness of the coffee couldn't mask my frustration. At 28, I was a department head at an internet company with a decent salary. But in my parents' eyes, being unmarried was a sin. Over the past year, I'd been on over 20 blind dates, either mama's boys or weirdos. All eyeing my salary and property, I put down my phone and headed to work. Passing a downtown construction site, a shrill drill sound made me wince and look up. Through the fence, I saw a man shirtless, moving steel bars. He wore a faded gray tank top, sweat streaming down his bronzed back. Muscles defined and powerful, sweat-dampened hair clung to his forehead, his jawline sharp and unapproachable. Somehow, I stopped. Maybe it was the pressure to marry driving me to desperation. Or maybe his raw, rugged presence contrasted so starkly with the slick, polished blind dates. I stared for 3 full minutes until he set down the steel, grabbed a water bottle for a long drink, and turned to meet my gaze. His eyes were sharp, scrutinizing, but I didn't look away. Instead, I pushed open the gate and walked in. The ground was uneven. I picked my way carefully in high heels, my heart pounding. I cleared my throat, trying to sound calm. "Hi, my name is Emily Smith. I want to discuss something." He raised an eyebrow, set down the bottle, wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, his voice low and raspy. "What is it?" "I want to marry you." The words shocked us both. But once out, I plunged ahead. "My parents are hounding me to marry. I don't want to go back home or deal with more blind dates. We can be a paper couple, it'll give you $5,000 a month for expenses. No interference in each other's lives. When I get through this, or if you want out, we divorce amicably." He studied me, his expression shifting from surprise to curiosity. Then he smirked faintly. "Do you know what I do? I'm a foreman, car, no house, unstable pay. You sure about a quick marriage?" "Yes." I nodded firmly. "I don't care about your job or your money. I just need the marriage status for my family. We can draft a prenup however you like. No shared assets." He was silent for minutes. A worker called out, "John," and he signaled to wait. Then he turned to me, serious. $5,000 is enough for me, but I have a condition. During the marriage, I won't interfere with you, and you don't pry into my life. Also, I might need to stay at home sometimes to handle things on my end." I was stunned he agreed so fast. "No problem. That's fine. Now," he asked, "go to the registry office." I suggested, my heart racing. He glanced at his dusty tank top and work pants, frowning. "I need to change first." Half an hour later, we met at the registry. He wore a simple white t-shirt and black pants, hair neatly combed, without the grime. His features were surprisingly handsome, though his brow still held that aloof edge. Getting the license felt like a dream. When the red marriage certificate was handed to me, I looked at the photo, him expressionless, me with a stiff smile, my emotions tangled. Outside, he tucked his copy into his pocket. "Send me your address. When's the first payment?" I gave him my apartment complex and transferred $5,000 on the spot. "They'll send it on the 1st of every month." "Oh, I live in a two-bedroom if you stay over. Use the guest room." He pocketed the money. "Got it. I have to go." He walked off without a backward glance. Standing there, watching him disappear, I looked at the certificate. It all felt absurd. ID impulsively married a foreman in a tank top. We didn't even know each other's full names. Just exchanged contacts and basics. Back at the office, I was still dazed. My colleague Miss Lee leaned in, whispering, "Emily, when you called your mom at lunch, was she nagging about marriage again?" Without thinking, I blurted, "No need. I'm married." Her eyes widened. "Really? When? What does he do?" I pictured the tank top figure and mumbled, "Recently. Just a regular worker. I'll introduce you later." She pressed for more, but a message from our boss cut in, letting me change the subject. Scrolling my phone, I saw the new contact, John Wilson. And a strange flutter hit me. John Wilson, that was his name. My impulsive husband. A construction foreman. I didn't know how long this farce would last or what came next. But for now, ID escaped my parents' pressure and avoided going home. Maybe this was the best outcome. For the week after the wedding, I almost forgot I was married. John didn't contact me, and I enjoyed the peace, treating it as a facade, as a paper couple. I never expected him to step into my 2-bedroom apartment, but on Friday night, after a late shift, I dragged myself home and found the door ajar. A faint smell of food and disinfectant wafted out, replacing the usual takeout mess. My heart raced. I grabbed my pepper spray and eased the door open. The living room was dim, lit only by a warm floor lamp. In the glow, that familiar figure stood by the kitchen in his faded gray tank top, muscles stark under the light. He wiped the stove with a cloth. At the sound, he turned, eyebrow raised. "You're back." I froze, almost dropping the spray. "How did you get in?" "The key you gave me." He pointed to the shoe rack where ID tossed the spare. "Passed by this afternoon and saw your faucet dripping. So I fixed it." I glanced at the balcony. The broken washer hose was replaced. Water stains mopped up. The living room was tidy, dirty clothes from the sofa gone. Laundry neatly hung. Papers sorted. And boxes packed for recycling. In the kitchen, the sink was spotless. The stove gleaming. Even the greasy range hood filter scrubbed clean. "You," I stammered. Speechless. Without explaining, he ladled out steaming tomato egg noodles. "Just made this. Light on salt. You said your stomach lining is thin." I remembered mentioning that casually when we got married. Had remembered. I walked over and sat down, picked up my chopsticks, and took a bite. The noodles were cooked to a perfect firmness, the broth sweet and sour with just the right flavor. He sat across from me, silent, just looking down at a set of architectural drawings in his hands, turning the pages gently as if afraid to disturb me. After finishing the noodles, I started to clear the dishes, but he reached out to stop me. "Leave it. I'll take care of it." With that, he stood up and tidied the table, his movements skilled and efficient, not at all clumsy like some big, rough man. That night, he stayed in the guest room, lying in bed. I listened to the soft sound of pages turning next door, and for the first time, a strange feeling stirred in my heart. I thought he was just visiting occasionally, but it turned into our daily routine after marriage. He didn't come every day, but whenever he did, he would tidy up my messy home until it was spotless. When I worked late and came home, I'd always find a light on in the living room, with a warm meal waiting on the table. If I overslept in the morning, a toothbrush with toothpaste already squeezed out would be placed by the sink. And hot steamed buns and soy milk he bought would be on the shoe rack by the entrance. On rainy days, had put my umbrella by the door in advance, carefully wrapping a cloth around the handle to keep it from getting my hands wet. Once, during my period, the pain was so bad I couldn't straighten up. Curled on the sofa sweating cold sweat, he came back, saw me, said nothing, silently went to the kitchen to make ginger tea with brown sugar, then found my hot water bottle, filled it with hot water, and handed it to me. As I took the bottle, my fingertips brushed against the back of his hand, rough with calluses, yet carrying a comforting warmth. "You're a construction foreman," How do you know how to do all this? I couldn't help asking. He paused, his voice still low and raspy. Back on the site, the crew would get headaches or fevers now and then, so I picked it up over time. After that, he said no more, turning to tidy the blanket I'd tossed on the sofa. Watching his back, I suddenly felt this tank-top-wearing rough guy was nothing like I'd imagined. He spoke little, but was thoughtful. He looked rugged, yet gentle in just the right way. I just didn't know if this gentleness was his true nature or just because of the $5,000 in living expenses. On Monday morning at work, the receptionist walked into the office carrying a stack of red invitations, beaming with joy. Everyone, this year's company annual party is set for next Saturday at the top floor banquet hall of Jinmao Tower. And the key point is you must bring your partner. As soon as she said it, the office erupted. My coffee cup almost slipped from my hand, and my heart skipped a beat. Mandatory partners. What kind of new rule was that? Sister Lee beside me started showing off, waving her wrist with a new diamond ring. My old Joe already booked his toques, even canceled an out-of-town project just to be with me. Another young colleague, Xiao Zhang, chimed in. My boyfriend said he'd pick me up in his Maybach and drive everyone around. A group gathered, chattering away, all about their partner's status, outfits, and cars. The air thick with the sour stench of rivalry. I quietly shrank back at my desk, pretending to organize files. But my ears couldn't help listening to their conversation. Suddenly, Sister Lee's gaze landed on me, her tone deliberately concerned. Emily Smith, we haven't properly congratulated you on your marriage. What does your husband do? You have to bring him so we can meet him. Her words drew everyone's eyes to me, filled with curiosity, probing, and some undisguised scrutiny. My fingers froze as I remembered John Wilson's faded tank top and work pants. My throat tightening. He's just an ordinary office worker. Usually pretty busy. An ordinary office worker. Xiao Zhang covered her mouth with a light laugh, loud enough for all to hear. Emily, you're so talented. How did you end up with an ordinary guy? Could it be you're afraid to bring him out because you're embarrassed? That jab stung. Yeah. I was a department head at the company, with a decent salary and looks. So how did I end up married to a construction foreman? But then I thought John Wilson and I had a whirlwind marriage. A marriage in name only. So why should I care what others thought? Yet seeing my colleagues' smirking faces, a defiant surge rose in me. Why? Why should I be judged by them? John might be a foreman, but he was reliable and attentive, way more dependable than those smooth-talking rich kids. On the way home from work, I hesitated the whole time, but finally pulled out my phone and texted John. My company annual party is next Saturday, and partners are required. Can you come with me? After sending it, my heart raced. Would he refuse? After all, this kind of event might feel out of place for him. Soon, my phone buzzed. It was John's reply. What time? Send me the address. I was stunned. I hadn't expected him to agree so readily. I quickly sent the time and address, adding, we might need to dress formally. Should I buy you a suit? He replied fast. No need. I have one. I was so proceed a construction foreman with a suit. But then I recalled he'd mentioned needing to go back home occasionally for appearances. So it must have come in handy then. On Friday night, John came over for dinner, still in that gray tank top, carrying a bag of fresh vegetables. I couldn't resist asking, do you really have a suit? Are you sure I shouldn't help prepare? He paused while washing the vegetables, looking up at me. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you. Seeing the certainty in his eyes, my anxiety eased a lot. Yeah, so what if it was embarrassing? He was my husband, someone I'd legally married. Even if he was a foreman, even if he dressed plainly, what did it matter? It was better than those flashy but rotten inside types. On Saturday, I left work early to get ready, changing into the evening gown I'd prepared and applying meticulous makeup. In the mirror, with my hair down and the long dress trailing, I looked completely different from my usual professional self at work. Just as I was adjusting my earrings, the doorbell rang. I ran to open it, and the person standing outside made me freeze in place. John Wilson at the door was indeed wearing formal attire. But it was completely different from what I had imagined. No tailored suit, no polished leather shoes, no elaborate tie. He had on a neatly pressed white shirt, made of ordinary fabric yet crisp and clean, with the sleeves casually rolled up to his forearms, revealing sturdy wrists where distinct bones were visible, along with faint scars that looked like they'd come from the construction site. Below, he wore simple black trousers, a basic style, but he carried them with a straight, confident posture. On his feet were black casual shoes, spotlessly clean. He hadn't styled his hair, just combed it neatly, with loose strands still falling casually over his forehead. Yet it looked fresher than usual, shedding the ruggedness of work clothes for a plain shirt and trousers. His rugged aura remained, but now with an unadorned, clean efficiency. I froze for a few seconds and blurted out, "You're wearing that." He glanced down at his outfit, tone flat. "Why? Isn't it appropriate?" "No." I waved my hands quickly. "It's just the annual company party venue is quite formal. And most people's partners would probably be in suits or gowns." ID actually secretly ordered him a tailored suit with a tie and leather shoes, stashed in the walk-in closet, thinking he might need them. But seeing him like this now, it was clear he didn't. John followed my gaze to the closet, as if reading my mind. "No need for all that fuss. Comfort is key." His straightforwardness made me inexplicably relax. Maybe I'd been too worried about others' opinions. I smiled. "All right. You look good in anything." As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt a bit embarrassed myself and quickly turned to grab my bag. "Let's go. We don't want to be late." On the way to Jinmao Tower, the car was quiet. I glanced over at him. He was staring out the window, the sharp lines of his profile still cold and hard, yet somehow reassuring. "Once we get to the venue, if anyone asks about your job, just..." I hesitated, unsure how to phrase it. Calling him a foreman might invite disdain, but lying seemed unnecessary. John turned to me, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Say I'm a foreman. Nothing to hide." His honesty erased the last bit of anxiety in me. "Yes. There's no hierarchy in professions. Earning a living through hard work is nothing to be ashamed of." Arriving at the top floor of Jinmao Tower, the banquet hall's opulence exceeded all expectations. Crystal chandeliers glittered brilliantly, marble floors gleamed like mirrors, and the air buzzed with perfumed elegance and clinking glasses. Colleagues were all dressed to the nines, their partners mostly in tailored suits or sparkling jewels. Clearly affluent. The moment Emily and John walked in, all eyes turned toward us. Those looks held curiosity, scrutiny, and mostly undisguised appraisal and mockery. Sister Lee, arm in arm with her husband, approached. Her husband wore a designer suit with a gold chain around his neck, radiating flashiness. Sister Lee's gaze swept over John, a meaningful smile curling her lips. "Emily Smith, is this your husband? He looks sharp. What industry is he in?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough for everyone nearby to hear. John didn't speak, just gave a slight nod in greeting. I took a deep breath and stated plainly, "He's in construction." "Construction?" Xiao Zhang suddenly piped up, eyes wide in exaggerated surprise. "Like laying bricks on a site." "Emily, your taste is really something." Her words drew soft chuckles, and the stares at John grew more contemptuous. "What's wrong with laying bricks?" John finally spoke, his voice low but carrying undeniable force. "Earning with your own hands isn't shameful." Xiao Zhang froze, her smile stiffening. "I didn't mean it like that. Just it feels a bit out of place here." "Out of place?" John scanned the lavish hall, his gaze settling on the people in designer clothes with haughty expressions. "Wasn't all this built brick by laborers?" His words landed like a hammer, silencing the laughter instantly. Sister Lee's husband looked uncomfortable but didn't dare respond. A warmth surged through me, and I instinctively linked arms with John, standing tall. I think my husband is right. No job is above or below another. People who work with their feet on the ground deserve respect more than anyone. John glanced at me, a flicker of tenderness in his eyes, and gently patted my hand. As if comforting or encouraging, we ignored the lingering stares and headed straight for a corner table. Along the way, countless eyes still clung to us, mocking, disdainful, some gleeful, but I didn't care anymore, compared to those shallow, status-obsessed people. John's steadiness and honesty were what truly mattered. After sitting down, John poured me a glass of warm water. Don't take it to heart. I took the cup, the warmth seeping into my fingertips, and shook my head with a smile. I want. What do they know? Little did I know. This was just the beginning. More challenges awaited us during the rest of the evening. Not long after settling in the corner, lights brightened on the central stage, and the host, in a glamorous gown, announced the start of the annual party. Music swelled, delicacies were served, champagne towers sparkled, and the whole scene reeked of decadence. Yet this luxury only made Emily and John stand out more. Director Wong from the next table, arm in arm with his wife, toasted the crowd. His wife wore a custom evening gown with a pigeon egg-sized diamond necklace and bracelets that dazzled. Passing our table, Director Wong's eyes lingered on John for a moment, a faint smile playing on his lips. Supervisor Emily, is this your husband? He seems very composed. His tone held no malice, but the scrutiny in his gaze felt like needles. John just nodded again, reaching over to serve me steamed fish. Watch for bones. His gesture was natural and tender, completely unfazed by the surroundings. Taking the fish. My awkwardness vanished. After all, we were here for the party, not a fashion show. Why care about others' opinions? But some people couldn't stand seeing others at ease. Xiao Zhang approached with her boyfriend, who wore a shiny suit, slicked back hair, and toyed with a car key bearing a Maybach emblem. Emily, aren't you going to introduce your husband? Xiao Zhang said loudly. My boyfriend is in financial investment. She made 7 figures last year alone. Her boyfriend lifted his chin smugly, eyes sweeping dismissively over John. What kind of construction are you in? If there's a good project, maybe we could partner up. It sounded polite, but it was really probing John's background, implying, what could a construction worker offer? John set down his chopsticks and met his gaze. Just basic infrastructure, probably not up to your standards. His tone was calm but distant, shutting down any further conversation. Xiao Zhang's boyfriend stiffened, clearly not expecting such bluntness. Xiao Zhang quickly interjected. Emily, your husband is so modest. By the way, what brand is his shirt? It looks comfortable. I'd like to get one for my boyfriend. Her words seemed like concern, but in fact, she was mocking John's clothes for having no brand. I instantly got angry. Just as I was about to retort, John said first. No brand. Bought from a street stall. $50 for 2 pieces. He said it calmly, without any attempt to cover up. Instead, it made Lisa and her boyfriend stunned. People around, hearing this, also cast surprised looks, and some even couldn't help laughing. $50 for 2 pieces. Lisa covered her mouth, as if she had heard the biggest joke. Emily, how could you let your husband wear such cheap clothes to the annual party? This is just too embarrassing for you, right? I interrupted her, looking at her coldly with my eyes. The value of clothes doesn't lie in the price, but in the person wearing them. My husband looks more decent in a $50 shirt than some people in a suit worth tens of thousands of dollars. Lisa's face turned red and then white. Her boyfriend also frowned and said, Miss Smith, don't be so sharp-tongued. Sharp-tongued. I just can't stand people who look down on others. There's no high or low in occupations, and no distinction between expensive and cheap in dressing. Why judge a person by these? John gently patted the back of my hand, signaling me to calm down. He looked at Lisa and her boyfriend. Still in a flat tone. We have something else to do. Excuse us. After saying that, he put his hand on my shoulder and turned towards the terrace. Pushing open the terrace door, the evening breeze blew in, bringing a touch of coolness and instantly dispelling the stuffiness in the banquet hall. I leaned against the railing, still a bit angry. These people are so. Why do they look down on you? John stood beside me, looking at the city night view in the distance. The bright lights were reflected in his deep eyes. He gave a soft laugh. There's no need to be angry with irrelevant people, but it's just not okay for them to bully you. I turned to look at him. Under the moonlight, his side face looked much softer. That $50 white shirt actually looked extremely clean and refreshing in the night. You're so good. They just don't understand. John turned to look at me, a glint of smile flashing in his eyes. You think I'm good? Being asked like this. I suddenly felt a bit embarrassed, my cheeks flushing. Of course. You're careful, down to earth, and responsible. You're much better than those who only know how to show off. He didn't say a word, just quietly looked at me. The evening breeze blew his short hair, and there seemed to be something hidden in his eyes, making my heart beat faster. Just then, the door of the banquet hall was pushed open, and Miss Lee and her husband came out. Seeing us, Miss Lee walked over with a smile. Emily, why are you hiding here in the breeze? They're about to draw the big prize inside. Her husband's eyes scanned John, and he played with a string of Buddhist beads in his hand, with a tone of showing off. I just heard from Mr. Wong that your husband is in infrastructure. Coincidentally, I've recently invested in a real estate project. Maybe we can really cooperate in the future. His words seemed enthusiastic, but still carried an arrogant air of charity. John nodded faintly. Let's talk if there's a chance. Miss Lee's husband obviously didn't expect him to be so cold. His face looked a bit bad. Miss Lee quickly smoothed things over. All right. Let's go back. I heard the first prize is a Mercedes. We followed them back to the banquet hall. Just as we sat down, we saw the host walk onto the stage with a microphone and announce with a smile. Next, we're going to invite the founder of the company, the chairman, Mr. Robert Wilson, to come on stage and give a speech for everyone. Hearing the name Robert Wilson, John's hand holding the water cup paused for a moment, and his eyes changed slightly. I didn't pay much attention, just thinking it was a coincidence. After all, this name isn't that rare. But when a middle-aged man in a black suit with a strong aura walked onto the stage, John beside me suddenly froze, and Chairman Robert Wilson on the stage scanned the whole audience with his eyes, and finally, firmly locked onto our corner, his eyes full of shock and disbelief. Chairman Robert Wilson on the stage was still giving his speech. His voice was loud, and he was sincerely reviewing the company's development history. But I below the stage couldn't listen at all, because Mr. Wong and his wife were walking straight towards us with wine glasses in their hands. He had a fake smile on his face, but his eyes were like hooks, scanning John back and forth. Miss Smith, we didn't have a good chat on the terrace just now. Now, I'd like to propose a toast to your husband. Saying that, he raised his wine glass, but didn't look at John. Instead, he looked at me. Miss Smith is young and capable, a backbone of the company. I really didn't expect you to marry a construction worker. He emphasized the words construction worker especially, with undisguised contempt. The eyes around instantly gathered again. Even Chairman Robert Wilson on the stage subconsciously glanced in our direction. Mr. Wong's wife also chimed in a sharp tone. Yes, Miss Smith. The most important thing for a woman in her life is to marry the right person. Look at my husband. He's in charge of projects worth hundreds of millions. He's always surrounded by people when he goes out. How impressive. As she said, she deliberately shook the diamond bracelet on her wrist. That show-off gesture was extremely unpleasant. I was so angry that I was trembling all over. Just as I was about to retort, Mr. Wang preempted me, looking at John with a provocative tone. Sir, I'm not trying to be rude, but your job in construction is hard. And there's not much future in it. Your salary is also unstable. Miss Smith is really wrong to be with you. John put down his wine glass, looked up at Mr. Wang, his eyes as cold as ice. Do you think only those in charge of billion-level projects have a future? Isn't it? Mr. Wang sneered. People should strive for the better. Water flows downhill. People like you who do physical work will just end up like this in their lives. Really? John stood up. He was half a head taller than Mr. Wang, looking down at him with an air that instantly overpowered the other. I heard that the real estate project in the east of the city that you're in charge of has been ordered to stop construction and make rectifications by the Housing and Urban Rural Development Bureau recently because of unstable foundations. Mr. Wang's face instantly turned pale. How? How do you know? Not many people in the company knew this news. He had been keeping it a secret, trying to solve it privately. He didn't expect John to know so clearly. John curled his lips into a sneer. I not only know this, but also know that you cut corners and used substandard steel bars and cement to meet the construction deadline. You're talking nonsense. Mr. Wang jumped up in a hurry. His face flushed red. When did I cut corners? Don't make false accusations. You know very well whether it's a false accusation or not. John's voice was not loud, but every word was clear and spread around. The foundation is the root of a building. You ignored the safety of the residents for the sake of profit. Such a project is meaningless even if it makes a lot of money. He paused for a moment, scanned Mr. Wang's branded suit with his eyes, and said with a mocking tone, dressed so nicely, but doing such immoral things. I disdain such a future. People around were all stunned and started whispering to each other. Their looks at Mr. Wang were full of contempt. Mr. Wang's wife also panicked and pulled his arm. Husband, stop talking. Shut up. Mr. Wang shook off her hand and glared at John. Who the hell are you? Why are you against me? John didn't answer his question. He just turned to look at me, and his eyes instantly softened. Let's go. The air here is too stuffy. Saying that, he put his hand on my shoulder and turned to leave. Stop. Mr. Wang shouted angrily. Explain what you said clearly. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving. He reached out to grab John Wilson's arm, but John sidestepped, grabbed his wrist instead, and applied just enough pressure to make Manager Wang grimace in pain and cry out. Aw, that hurts. Let go. John controlled his strength perfectly, causing pain without injuring any bones or tendons. He glared coldly at Manager Wang. I advise you to hurry back and deal with the project issues. Don't embarrass yourself here. After speaking, he released his grip, and Manager Wang stumbled back a few steps, nearly falling. Low chuckles rippled through the crowd, and Manager Wang's face flushed with alternating shades of green and white, wishing he could vanish into the ground. I looped my arm through John's, straightened my back, and walked proudly through the throng. The mocking and disdainful looks from earlier had transformed into astonishment and respect. As we approached the banquet hall entrance, I couldn't help but glance back at the stage. Chairman Robert Wilson was still standing there, his gaze fixed on us with a mix of shock, relief, and a hint of barely concealed urgency. A vague feeling crept into my mind that John and Chairman Robert Wilson must share an unusual relationship. What are you thinking about? John asked. Looking down at me, I snapped out of my thoughts and stared at his sharp, defined profile before blurting out. How did you know about Manager Wang's project? And the way you acted just now, it didn't seem like an ordinary construction worker at all. John paused, his tone flat. News travels fast on the construction site. As for the rest, I'll tell you later. He still wouldn't say more, so I didn't press. Stepping out of Jinmao Tower, the evening breeze brushed my face, refreshingly cool. I looked at John beside me, filled with admiration and reliance. The way he had stood up for me and shut down Manager Wang so assertively was incredibly handsome. "Thank you for earlier," I said, looking up at him with a smile in my eyes. John turned his head, moonlight softening his features. "Protecting you is what I should do." That simple sentence warmed my heart as if soaked in warm water. We walked side by side on the sidewalk, streetlights stretching our shadows long and intertwined. Suddenly, this absurd whirlwind marriage didn't seem so bad after all. I even felt a twinge of gratitude that I had mustered the courage to propose to him at the construction site entrance. But I never expected an even bigger surprise was waiting for us. Just as we stepped through Jinmao Tower's revolving door, hurried footsteps sounded behind us, accompanied by a robust shout. "Wait, young man, wait." John and I stopped simultaneously and turned. Chairman Robert Wilson was striding toward us. Having shed his suit jacket from the stage, he wore only a white shirt, collar slightly open. His usual composed and authoritative demeanor replaced by urgent excitement. His steps were even a bit unsteady. Colleagues lingering nearby froze in shock, stopping to watch. Sister Li covered her mouth, her eyes filled with disbelief. Little Zhang and her Maybach boyfriend exchanged bewildered looks. Their earlier scorn vanished. Manager Wang rubbed his still aching wrist, his expression a complex palette of emotions. "Chairman," I instinctively spoke, my confusion deepening. "Is there something else?" But Robert seemed not to hear me. His gaze locked intensely on John. He rushed up, scrutinizing him from head to toe, his shock palpable as his voice trembled. You're really." He swallowed his words, reaching out to touch John's cheek but hesitating and pulling back, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. John stood still, expression calm, just watching Robert without moving closer. They remained a short distance apart, the atmosphere tense. "Chairman, do you know my husband?" I couldn't help but ask, my suspicions growing stronger. Robert finally snapped out of it and looked at me, apology and eagerness in his eyes. "Miss Emily Smith, head of the company's marketing department, and his wife," I said, gesturing to John beside me, a hint of tension in my tone. "Wife?" Robert's eyes widened as he turned back to John, his voice more fervent. "You're married. When did that happen? Why didn't you tell me?" His tone carried the reproach of an elder mixed with deep concern, making our colleagues gasp and whisper among themselves. "Oh my God. The chairman actually knows Emily's husband. Look at his attitude, they must be close. We mocked him as a construction worker earlier. Could he be?" "Stop guessing. Just watch." The murmurs reached my ears, and my unease intensified. I turned to John. "John, what's going on? Do you know the chairman?" John finally spoke, his tone still calm but laced with a trace of resignation. You could say that. You could say that." Robert grew frantic, stepping forward and grabbing John's arm. "What do you mean? You could say that? I'm your father. How can you say that, Dad?" That single word exploded like thunder through the crowd. I froze on the spot, my mind blank, ears ringing. Our colleagues were stunned into silence. Little Zhang dropped her purse. Sister Li's husband instinctively released her arm, and Manager Wang stood rooted, every expression frozen on his face. Everyone stared in disbelief at John and Robert, shock and confusion in their eyes. Chairman Robert Wilson's son, that construction worker in a tank top, living on site, receiving a monthly allowance from Mua, is actually the heir to the Wilson family empire. It was crazier than any TV drama. John frowned and gently freed himself from Robert's grip. "Dad, there are too many people here." "So what?" Robert's emotions still ran high, his voice rising. "You kid. Sneaking off to become a construction worker without a word. Getting married in secreto. You have any idea how long your mother and I searched for you? If I hadn't seen you at the annual meeting today, who knows how long I'd have waited." His words were like puzzle pieces, piecing together the truth. I stood by, feeling icy cold all over. As if in a dream, It turned out that when he said occasionally go back home to deal with situations, he meant going back to Robert Wilson's home. It turned out that he could fix pipes, cook meals, and be thoughtful, not because he had been working on construction sites for a long time, but because he was actually a pampered young master just experiencing life. It turned out that he owned suits but chose to wear shirts costing 50 yuan for two, not because he was poor, but because he simply didn't care about superficial things, and I had actually thought he was just an ordinary construction foreman. Even giving him 5,000 yuan a month for living expenses now it seemed like a huge joke. Emily Smith. I'm sorry. Robert Wilson turned to look at me, his tone sincere. It's this kid's fault for not being honest with you about his identity. Please don't be angry. Rest assured, I will give you a satisfactory explanation. I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. My heart a mix of emotion, shock, hurt, and a trace of anger at being deceived. John saw my feelings and reached out to hold my hand. His palm was warm, carrying a comforting strength. Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to deceive you. Things aren't what you think. His eyes held apology and urgency, wanting to explain. But Robert Wilson interrupted. What do you mean? Not on purpose. You were just trying to hide from us. Come on. Let's go home. Your mother will be overjoyed if she knows you're back. With that, Robert Wilson tried to pull John away. Wait. I finally found my voice. Pulling away from John's hand and stepping back, looking at him with confusion and hurt in my eyes. John, who are you really? Why did you lie to me? The air around us instantly grew quiet. Everyone's gaze fixed on us, some sympathetic, some curious, others gloating. John looked at me, a flicker of pain in his eyes. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. Robert Wilson also sensed the awkwardness, sighed, and patted John's shoulder. All right. Let's discuss this at home. Don't embarrass Emily Smith here. He turned to me, his tone gentler. Emily Smith, I know you're upset right now, but please believe me, John isn't a bad person at heart. He was just confused for a moment. Tonight, they'll host us somewhere nice to talk properly. Okay. I looked at John, then at Robert Wilson, the chaos in my mind making it impossible to decide. This sudden family revelation felt like a boulder crashing into my once peaceful life, shattering everything I thought I knew about John. The first didn't know who to trust or where to go. The murmurs around me surged like a tide, stinging my eardrums. I stared at John, flashes of our time together playing in my mind. Him fixing pipes in a tank top, cooking noodles for me late at night, casually saying his clothes cost 50 yuan for two, and earlier, standing up for me against Director Wang. Those moments had once felt warm and grounding, but now they seemed like illusions built on lies. Speak up. My voice trembled, tears welling in my eyes. Who are you really? Why pretend to be a foreman to trick me into marriage? Did you think I was easy to fool? John's face instantly paled. He reached out to touch me, but I dodged. The pain in his eyes deepened. Emily, I wasn't trying to fool you. I don't say anything. I cut him off, the hurt and anger flooding out. I thought we were helping each other, an equal agreement. But you lied from the start. You're the young master of the Wilson family. You don't need my 5,000 yuan for living expenses. Did you find it amusing to watch me act like a fool? That's not it, John said urgently, his voice rising. I hid my identity not to mess with you, but because I didn't want to be bound by my family's status. I wanted to find someone who saw me for who I am, not my background. The day I met you, I genuinely wanted to be nominal spouses. Later, when I treated you well, it was all real. His words rang out firmly, the desperation in his eyes seeming genuine, but the knot in my heart remained. The feeling of betrayal was too painful. Robert Wilson watched from the side and sighed. Emily Smith, don't blame him. This kid has been rebellious since childhood, refusing to inherit the family business, always saying he wanted to make it on his own. A year ago, He had a big fight with us, declared he'd experience real life, and disappeared. We searched for him forever, never imagining he'd end up as a construction foreman and secretly get married. He glared at John. His tone resigned. I know you didn't want to be tied to the family, but you can't treat Emily Smith this way. Marriage is a big deal. How could you hide your identity? John stayed silent, just stubbornly looking at me, pleading in his eyes. Emily, give me a chance to explain. Okay. The colleagues around us had completely changed their tune. Little Jean picked up her fallen bag and hurried over. A sycophantic smile plastered on her face. Emily, so Mr. John is the chairman's son. Truly hidden depths. We were blind before. Please don't hold it against us. Sisterly pulled her husband over, apologizing profusely. Yes, Emily, we spoke out of turn earlier. You're magnanimous. Please don't take it to heart. Mr. John is so handsome. You two are a perfect match. Director Wong looked deathly pale, stepping forward quickly. Mr. John, Supervisor Emily, I was blind before, offending you. Please forgive me. I'm just a small person. They'll fix the East City project immediately. No more cutting corners. Watching their sudden fawning after earlier scorn, I felt a cold laugh inside. The mockery and disdain were still vivid, yet now they groveled like lapdogs, ridiculous and infuriating. John gave them a cold glance, his tone distant. Our business is none of your concern. His words froze them in place, their smiles turning awkward. Robert Wilson spoke up at the right moment. Everyone, thank you for witnessing today's events. My son is troublesome, causing you all inconvenience. Another day, they'll host a gathering to make amends. With the chairman speaking, no one dared say more, just dispersing sheepishly, casting ingratiating looks at me and John as they left. After the crowd thinned, the entrance to Jeanmao Tower grew much quieter. Robert Wilson looked at me, earnest. Emily Smith, I know you're hurting, but John isn't bad at here. That just wanted too much to escape the family's shadow. Tonight, they'll take you both home, whatever it is. Let's sit down and talk it through slowly. Okay. I looked at John. His eyes were full of guilt and unease, like a child who'd done wrong, remembering his gentleness and care over this time. How head stood up for me. My anger slowly faded, replaced by deep conflict. Should I trust him? Okay. I finally nodded. I want to hear your explanation. John's eyes lit up instantly, a hint of relief flashing across his face. Robert Wilson breathed out in relief and quickly called for the driver. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up slowly in front of us, the driver opening the door respectfully, a stark contrast to the buses and shared bikes John usually took, making the gap between us feel like an unbridgeable chasm. In the car, Robert Wilson sat in the front, while John and I sat in the back, the atmosphere awkward. I turned to look out the window, ignoring him. John hesitated for a long time before finally speaking, his voice low and hoarse. Emily, I really didn't mean to deceive you. I'm John Wilson, and the Wilson family business was founded by my father. Since childhood, I've lived under family arrangements. They made me study finance, management, take over the company, even planned to use my marriage for alliances. He paused, a flicker of disgust in his eyes. I didn't want that life. I wanted to know if I could survive without the family, earn money with my own hands. So a year ago, after a huge fight at home, I took the few thousand yuan I had and went to the construction site. Life on the site was tough but solid. I didn't have to deal with scheming or fake people, just doing the job well, earn my pay. He turned to me, tenderness in his gaze. The day I met you, I'd just come off the site, covered in dust. You suddenly ran up and proposed marriage. I was shocked but also moved. I wasn't moved by your conditions but by your bravery and honesty. You said you didn't care about my job, just wanted to handle marriage pressure. That was exactly what I wanted. I thought we could be simple nominal spouses, not interfering, but I never expected to fall for you. His voice was soft but clear in my ears. I didn't dare tell you my real identity. Afraid you'd change toward me because of my family, or think I was playing you. I wanted to be with you as John, not as the Wilson family heir. I turned to him. His eyes were open, no hiding, recalling all had done for me, how he looked at me. The knot in my heart loosened. What about the 5,000 yuan for living expenses? I couldn't help asking. You didn't need it. John smiled faintly, a trace of helplessness in his eyes. I accepted it to make our agreement feel equal. So you wouldn't think you were giving a loan. I saved all that money, planning to return it with interest when we divorced. Robert Wilson couldn't resist chiming in from the front. This kid is so stubborn. With all the family money, he insists on struggling on his own. Hiding everything just drives me crazy. I looked at John, and the grievance in my heart gradually dissipated, replaced by a complex emotion. I never expected that there was such a hidden story behind this absurd flash marriage. The car slowly drove into a high-end villa area and finally stopped in front of a magnificent villa. Looking at the exquisitely decorated house in front of me, I suddenly felt a bit nervous. This was John's real home, a completely different world from my small 2-bedroom apartment. Robert got out of the car first, then turned back to us and said, "Come on, your mom is waiting at home. She'll be over the moon if she knows you're back." John held my hand, and his palm was warm. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." I looked into his determined eyes and nodded. No matter what was going to happen next, I wanted to figure out what to do with this relationship full of deception and sincerity. When I followed John into the villa, I subconsciously clenched the corner of my clothes. The marble floor was shiny, and the crystal chandelier hanging down was even more dazzling than the one at the company's annual party. The sofa in the living room was so big that several people could lie on it. The calligraphy and paintings on the wall were obviously very valuable. All this was in sharp contrast to my warm 2-bedroom apartment, making me feel at a loss. "John." A crying voice came. A gentle-looking middle-aged woman in a cheongsam walked over quickly, with red-rimmed eyes. She grabbed John's arm and sized him up and down. "You naughty boy. You've been away for over a year without even sending a single message home. Do you know how worried your dad and I were?" "Mom, I was wrong." John's tone softened instantly. He reached out and hugged her, his eyes full of guilt. This should be John's mother. Her gaze soon fell on me, after sizing me up. A smile appeared in her originally red-rimmed eyes. She quickly let go of John and took my hand. Her palm was warm and soft. "You must be Emily. You're so pretty. John is really lucky." Her enthusiasm eased my nervousness a bit. I shyly said, "Hello, Auntie. Good, good, good." John's mom beamed from ear to ear and pulled me to the sofa. "Sit down quickly. I've asked the kitchen to make some soup. Try it later." Robert followed behind, shaking his head helplessly. "Your mom got up at dawn to prepare when she knew you were coming back today." We sat on the sofa, and the maid served us hot tea and snacks. John's mom held my hand and kept asking about me, from my job to my hobbies. She didn't act like a wealthy lady at all. Instead, she was like an ordinary elder, which made me feel less estranged. When John's mom went to the kitchen to check on the soup, only the three of us, John, Robert, and I, were left in the living room. The atmosphere finally calmed down. John looked at me seriously and began to tell me those hidden stories I didn't know. "A year ago, my dad forced me to marry the daughter of the Zhang group." John's voice was low and tired. "The purpose of the marriage was simple: to strengthen the cooperation between the two families and expand the company's scale. But I didn't want to marry a woman I'd never met before. And I didn't want my marriage to become a sacrifice for family interests." He paused and looked at Robert, his tone a bit complaining. "All my life has been arranged. What major to study, who to be friends with, and even what clothes to wear have to follow the family's requirements. I'm fed up with that kind of restricted life. I wanted to know if I could survive on my own without the identity of the young master of the Wilson family." Robert sighed. picked up his teacup and took a sip. Without saying a word. So I had a big fight with him and ran away with only a few thousand yuan on me. John continued. I went to a construction site and started as a laborer, doing all kinds of hard work like carrying bricks, tying steel bars, and building walls. It was really tough at first. I was so tired that I just fell asleep as soon as I hit the bed. But I felt at ease. Later, with the architectural knowledge I learned in college, I gradually got promoted to a foreman and finally stood on my own feet. He turned to look at me, his eyes full of tenderness. The day I met you, I just got my salary. And I was still wearing that washed-out vest. You suddenly came up to me and said you wanted to get married and would give me 5,000 yuan a month for living expenses. I was really shocked. I met so many women who got close to me because of my family background. You were the first one who didn't ask about my identity or background, but only wanted a marriage status to deal with your family. I admit that I hid my identity at first because I was scared. John's voice dropped a bit. I was afraid that once you knew who I was, you'd be like those women, only caring about my family background instead of me. I wanted to get along with you as an ordinary foreman for a while. I didn't expect that I'd fall in love with you during our time together. Were all the things you did for me real? I couldn't help asking. Thinking of the noodles he cooked late at night, the pipes he fixed, and the toothpaste he squeezed, all real. John nodded without hesitation. I cooked noodles for you because I knew you had a bad stomach. I fixed the pipes for you because I couldn't stand your messy house. I squeezed the toothpaste for you because I wanted you to sleep a few more minutes in the morning. These things have nothing to do with my identity, but everything to do with you. Robert spoke up, his tone full of apology. Emily, I'm sorry. I was too stubborn before. I always thought that the arranged marriage was the best for John, but I ignored his feelings. Seeing him with you, I realized that what he really wanted wasn't a business marriage, but a simple and sincere relationship. He paused and looked at John. I've called off that arranged marriage. From now on, you're in charge of your own life. John's eyes lit up. He looked at Robert. Dad. Thank you. Just then, John took out a bank card from his pocket and handed it to me. This is the 5,000 yuan living expenses you gave me. I didn't spend a single cent of it and saved it all. And the money I earned at the construction site this year is also in it. Emily, I know it was my fault to hide my identity. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I hope you can give me a chance to make it up to you for the rest of my life. I looked at the bank card and then into John's sincere eyes. The last bit of resentment in my heart finally disappeared. It turned out that behind the seemingly absurd flash marriage, there had been sincere feelings from the very beginning. The next day when I walked into the company, the originally noisy office area suddenly fell silent. All eyes were on me, different from the previous sneers and disdain. Now there was only flattery and awe. Sister Lee was the first to come up, holding a freshly bought milk tea in her hand. Her obsequious smile was blinding. Good morning, Emily. This is your favorite taro milk tea with boba, 3/10 sugar and less ice. I brought it for you specially. Xiao Zhang followed closely behind, carrying an exquisite gift box in his hand. There was an apologetic smile on his face. Sister Emily, I was so stupid before. I didn't know what to say. Please don't take it to heart. This is some skincare products I asked my friend to get. Try them. The colleagues around me also gathered around, chattering compliments. Some offered fruits, and some offered snacks. It was as if those previous sneers and looks were just my imagination. I raised my hand to interrupt them, my tone calm but with an undeniable sense of distance. It's working time. Let's focus on our work first. Then I walked straight to my workstation, leaving them standing there with their smiles frozen on their faces, looking embarrassed and awkward. Not long after I sat down, the company's internal notice came out. Director Wang was officially removed from his position and investigated for shoddy work and illegal operations in the Eastern City real estate project. All the projects he was in charge of were handed over to a new person in charge. The notice also emphasized at the end that this matter was personally supervised by the chairman and would not be tolerated. When I saw this news, I didn't feel a single ripple in my heart. I just felt extremely satisfied. John was right. The money earned through tricks and unscrupulous means couldn't last. Throughout the day, my colleagues looked at me with cautious awe. No one dared to compare partners in front of me anymore, and no one even mentioned the word foreman. Even the department manager, who used to boss me around, was polite to me. He even came over to ask if I needed any help. I took it calmly and still handled my work as usual, as if nothing had happened. To me, John's identity was his business, and my work was mine. The two should never be mixed up. When the off-work bell rang, I'd just packed up my things when I heard a small commotion in the office area. I looked up and saw John standing at the company's door, wearing that familiar white shirt. He was standing upright, with a faint smile on his lips, different from last time. This time he was accompanied by the chairman's special assistant, who was holding a bunch of gorgeous red roses. The whole office area erupted. The colleagues all craned their necks, their eyes full of envy and amazement. John walked through the crowd and came straight to me. He handed me the roses and said gently, "It's off work time. I'm here to pick you up and go home." The word home was like a small stone, creating ripples in my heart. I took the roses, and the faint fragrance of the flowers lingered around my nose. I looked up at him and nodded with a smile. We walked out of the company side by side, with the envious looks and whispers of our colleagues behind us. But I didn't care at all, because I knew that no matter whether this man was a foreman in a vest or the young master of the Wilson family, he was still the John who would cook noodles for me, fix the pipes, and stand up for me when I was wronged. The car didn't drive to that magnificent villa but stopped downstairs of my small apartment. When I walked into the house, the familiar smell of home-cooked food wafted over. John put down the things in his hand, walked straight into the kitchen, tied on an apron, and started to get busy. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching him skillfully wash and chop vegetables. The last rays of the sunset streamed through the window, casting a gentle golden glow over him. "Really, you don't have to do this." I couldn't help but say. "You're now the young heir of Wilson Group. There's no need for you to handle these household chores anymore." John Wilson turned to look at me, a smile in his eyes. "Here with you. I'm not the heir, just your husband." He paused, adding the chopped tomatoes to the pot, his voice serious. "Emily Smith, let's scrap that previous nominal marriage agreement. I want us to be a real couple, with no secrets, no lies, just the two of us." My heart skipped a beat as I looked into his earnest gaze, my eyes welling up slightly. I walked over to him, wrapped my arms gently around him from behind, rested my chin on his back, and murmured with a hint of emotion, "Okay." The soup bubbled and simmered in the pot, filling the air with its savory aroma. Outside, the sunset gradually faded as the city lights began to twinkle. I recalled the first time I saw him at the construction site, wearing a faded tank top, drenched in sweat, with a sharp, intense look in his eyes. Back then, I never imagined that this absurd whirlwind marriage would tie our fates together so tightly. After dinner, I curled up on the couch watching TV while John sat beside me, holding a set of architectural blueprints but glancing my way every so often, feeling a bit self-conscious under his gaze. I poked his arm and asked, "What are you looking at?" John set down the blueprints, pulled me into his embrace, and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. "Nothing," he said, his eyes filled with tenderness as he looked at me, just feeling like I hit the jackpot. I nestled against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Truly, fate works in the strangest ways, through twists and turns and a series of coincidences. That foreman in a tank top I married in a flash had become the light of my life. What began as a ridiculous marriage had finally blossomed into the most beautiful love story. The story ends here. Thank you for reading, and the next one will be even more exciting.